The building we are going to visit today is a Lazzaretto, a place used for the hospitalization and quarantine of people, goods, and animals coming from places affected by epidemics of plague, cholera, typhus, smallpox, leprosy, or any other kinds of infectious diseases. The high spread of these epidemics and the attempt to stop them are the possible reasons for the choice of the site of Sant'Elia. In fact, the place was quite far from the city. It was almost uninhabited and surrounded by fortifications. These were the most suitable characteristics to receive quarantined patients. The term Lazzaretto derives from Saint Lazarus, because, as we read in the Gospels, the saint had his body covered with ulcers and serious wounds. That is where the name of the Lazzarettos comes from. The oral traditions of the locals date back the Lazzaretto of Saint Elia to the 15th century. On the other hand, from the documents kept in the archives of Cagliari, we know that the first nucleus of the construction dates back to the 1600s, as shown by the marble emblem located above the entrance, representing the city of Cagliari between the poles of Aragon. In 1720, Victor Amadeus II transformed the first nucleus of the hospital, made up of very small houses, into a hospital for contagious diseases. At the same time, he issued a safety regulation made of anti-contagion rules in order to preserve public health. In both cases, the meticulous measures of security followed were a mixture of science and superstition. Infected people, or the presumed ones, were subjected to treatments based on fumigation. To do the fumigation, they used a mixture of salt, black manganese, vitriol oil, and water, which was first pulverized, then mixed, and finally introduced into a special box where everything was burned. Furthermore, money, without touching it with the hands, was put into strong vinegar and taken out after some time. Clothes were hung under the sun for several days. In addition to this, in order to confine the regions affected by the contagious disease, a sanitary inspection was established. This was composed of soldiers and civilians. These people were called health guards. Unfortunately, in spite of these precautions, poor hygiene conditions and the ineffective medical procedures not only did not stem the epidemics, but in some cases they favored the contagion, causing the death of most of the patients. Only those who were healthy or had a very strong body could survive. At the beginning of the 19th century, the spread of new plagues presented again the problem of the lack of space inside the hospital, and that is why further extensions were planned. During the first intervention in 1813, they created the internal square cloister surrounded by the rooms for the patients. In 1835, a second intervention commissioned by Charles Alberto of Sardinia was made. This aimed to renovate the existing rooms and to build the upper floor, designed to give a more welcoming accommodation to the nobles. The construction we see today, even if suitably renovated, dates back to 1835. The space where we are now is the cloister, a quadrangular courtyard. Where today we see the flower bed, earlier there was a chapel with a hexagonal plan. Under this trapdoor, there is still an underground cistern, currently not open to visitors, which, through a complex system of channels, was used to collect rainwater, very useful for the water supply of the hospital. The hygienic and sanitary deficiencies were also experienced by some distinguished personality like the ecclesiastic Giovanni Spano. In 1837, he returned from Naples, where a cholera epidemic spread, and he was interned in imprisonment-like conditions from the 2nd of September to the 12th of October in a barrel-shaped basement, which he later called the Barrel of Diogenes. We should also mention the French general Perregaux. He arrived in Cagliari lifeless and was buried at the hospital where a monument with an epigraph was dedicated to him. In the last part of the 19th century, the decrease of epidemics and the emergence of a new health awareness led to the end of the practice of quarantine as a means of prophylaxis, and therefore the closure of lazarettos. In 1879, children with scrofula from the province of Cagliari were hospitalized in the Lazzaretto. During the First World War, the Lazzaretto accommodated petechial typhus patients, and after the Second World War, it accommodated displaced people from the Bonaria caves, as well as many families of fishermen, who created the first nucleus of the Sant'Elia neighborhood. The Lazzaretto only found a new life in October 2000, after a demanding restoration work directed by the Venetian architect Andrea De Ecker. The restoration, which began in 1998 and lasted 2 years, was carried out pursuing the need to quickly finish the restoration works and the toughness of the construction over time. Due to the advanced state of deterioration and plunder to which the structure was subjected in the years of neglect, the original parts of the building that have been reserved are very few. Nevertheless, in the restoration work, the general layout and the 19th century colors indicated in the project found in the archives of Cagliari were preserved. Today, the Lazzaretto is a modern and multifunctional structure that hosts temporary exhibition, a media library, a large conference hall, a cafe with a suggestive terrace, and a large cloister used for cultural events, especially in the summertime.